Right. We now come to item number 11, which has been referred by the Audit and Risk Committee on Auckland's Council's health, safety and wellbeing performance. And if I can invite Ian's already here at the table, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Daniel Newman, seconded by Deputy Mayor Cashmore. I'll invite, this is a noting only paper, we have this regularly before us, so I'll ask Ian to speak to the paper and then we'll take questions. Ian, welcome.
Look, thank you, Your Worship. I'm here with Martin Griffiths from the Health, Safety and Wellbeing team. And look, I'll just be brief. The paper was written some weeks ago now, and I'll just run through an update of where we are on some of the sort of key items. So the mental wellbeing review, which is highlighted in the paper, the draft of that will go to our Chief Executive next Wednesday, and we're working through April to sort of finalise that, and the aim is to take that paper, it'll be public and it'll go to the Risk and Audit Committee in May, so that's on time. The ACC audit, which is highlighted, we actually passed that audit, so we are now continuing with our membership of the Accredited Employers Program. They did highlight a couple of issues which we needed to improve upon. One was around sort of working with our staff who have been injured at work, and in particular getting our people leaders to be in contact with those folk, and also some issues around worker participation and some of our health and safety operations, and both of those we're working on now. The report was written prior to level 3 COVID lockdown. We were just sort of highlighting at the time that we were prepared, and I think we were. We went through that lockdown pretty smoothly, both as an organisation but also as a wider council group, moving up to level 3 and then down through level 2. Just as an aside there, we are also developing up our programs with respect to vaccinations, COVID vaccinations. So the program obviously will be launched and promoted through the Ministry for Health, and we'll be working to ensure that our people are able to access those vaccinations. There's quite a bit of detail yet to go through, and to be honest, I haven't got a lot of that detail from the Ministry of Health here, but overall we'll be supportive clearly of our people obtaining those vaccinations. We've highlighted a number of incidents in the report, 5 altogether, that was such that we notified to WorkSafe. They've only picked up on one of those to investigate, and that's the sudden death that occurred towards the end of last year. Information was sought on that, and that was provided on time in early February, and now it's sitting with WorkSafe. So we as an organisation have met our requirements with respect to that. The other 4 issue or incidents that we've highlighted have all been subject to internal investigation. So while WorkSafe did not pick up a formal investigation, we clearly have done that ourselves. And the last item I'll just run through is the Risk and Audit Committee did make recommendations around the role of elected members, and in particular your roles as having a sort of a duty to ensure that this organisation is running in a good health and safety manner. And we're working with Phil Wilson, the Director of Democracy Services, to put those in place. It probably means a little change, particularly with respect to local boards. Local boards at the moment do receive reports, but they are largely the reports which you receive. And over time we'll be designing those around much more what they are the local governors for, and orientated around their districts. So that's an area that we need to improve upon. So look, I'll stop there, and if there's any questions, I hope we can answer them now.
Thank you very much, Ian and Martin, for being here. I think this is probably a topic on which we can run questions and comments together in terms of being an efficient use of time. So open to anyone that has any question or comment they'd like to make on the paper. It's pretty self-evident as it reads, but okay, if there are no... Councillor John Watson.
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple of questions. This Corporate Health, Safety and Wellbeing Committee, it has a union representative on it. Just remind me, what is the overall union membership of our organisation? What's the percentage?
So we have 2 unions working with members in our organisation, A1s, whose membership is largely found in recreation services, regional parks, cemeteries, and they would have perhaps 900 members or so. And the other major union is the PSA, and they would perhaps have, they're mainly concentrated in libraries and planning, resource consents, and generally elsewhere, but that would be where their major focus is, and they would perhaps have 1,500 to 2,000 members. I can get you the details. So overall, our workforce is not fully unionised at all.
Yeah.
And one of the areas that we're looking to improve upon is a more general worker representation, but we've started off with the unions.
Yes, okay. So I guess that's not unique to the council, but symptomatic of, declining unionship members over the last decade or so. And that kind of leads me on to my next question with respect of the review that the CEO has commissioned in terms of policies, processes and procedures. Often in a situation, and I think of a situation that apply to staff bullying or concerns there in terms of behaviours, one of the real needs in any organisation, in particular a big organisation, is one where people can feel confident going to someone to tell what's happening, and often there's a distrust of the organisation as such, and that there's not then that communication. So I know in terms of other big union memberships that like the PPTA, for instance, it's often the union that performs a kind of independent role in terms of having surveys, like health and wellbeing surveys that are independent, that are conducted independent of the organisation to their members. They sometimes do offer it beyond their own membership, but that has been successful in the past of highlighting issues within an organisation that people do not feel safe or trustworthy in going. In any of our review, is there any plan to bring an independent component to our policies, processes, in which people can then essentially go out of the organisation, even if to say, for argument's sake, the union, to have that sort of oversight that gives that kind of trust, and security for people then to come forward and feel safe to actually disclose what's going on?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. There's so look, that issue has been raised there's been quite an extensive discussion that's taken place with staff across the organisation, and that issue has been raised, and certainly we're looking at that as part of our approach. But it's not clear cut. We do have a number of speak up channels, and while there is concern from some staff that the element of trust is something that they're concerned about, in terms of its actual operation, it does seem to be working well. So there's a perception issue and perhaps an operational issue, but we are looking at the concept you've outlined.
So I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Mayor, because I think that's really important. I think any research shows that if there's not that vehicle for people coming forward, particularly in the economic circumstances we find it in a one-team employer for Auckland, where people's choices are really limited, that it's really important there's somewhere people can go to, and often, rightly or wrongly, it's not within the organisation itself, it's with some independent representation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kathy Casey.
Thanks, Ian. I'm interested in your 4 paragraphs about working from home. We've all had experience of it during COVID, and it's got its positives and its negatives, and you list some of those in your report. Can you tell me what the uptake is now of flexible working hours across the organisation? Is there a bigger uptake in some areas? And how are you mitigating the negative effects of working from home, which is the lack of connection and team spirit and so on?
So look, I suppose a very simple way to look at our workforce is we have a workforce that has to turn up to work. Our librarians and so forth, they have to be at work. So they are at work. They are at their normal place of work. Whereas we have perhaps a workplace such as that across the road here in Auckland House, where there's more of an opportunity to do something different. And so we are getting variation in terms of attendance at their normal place of work through the week. So it's probably lower on Fridays and Mondays and higher in the middle. I don't suppose that's a surprise, but nevertheless that is an issue. It's of concern to our organisation, and so we are working and will be working. We've advised people we're looking to see them in that work at least 3 days a week. We're also looking at teams coming together as a whole team at least once a week. Many of our people managers have set up procedures where they're regularly in touch with people. They might be at home, but a call through the week or each day as to how things are going. So look, we are learning. We're definitely not the only organisation struggling, or not struggling, having this issue. It's something I think we're going to have to get used to. I think perhaps the nature of work has changed as a result of COVID, not just for us, but for many organisations. And our team leaders and training and development are going to have to pick that up. But look, there's active processes in place at each team level to deal with that issue. And as an organisation, we're looking to bring more people into the office than perhaps what they might otherwise have done. So 3 days a week.
Mr. Chair. The implications for future provision of workspaces for staff, is that something that's on your radar now with regards to reducing the amount of space required?
Yes, that's been quite a big effort over the last actually 12 months or more. And you'll have seen we're concentrating within the CBD into a single building. So Graham Street and Bledisloe House will be vacated, and we'll be moving more of our people into Auckland House. And we're managing Auckland House in a manner where people can move in and out. I suppose hot desking is one of the sort of concepts associated with that. So look, there's some quite significant savings from a property perspective associated with that, and I think our staff are up for that.
Thank you very much. There's no further speakers, so I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Declare that carried. Thank you very much to Ian and Martin. Item number 12 is also referred from the Audit and Risk Committee, and this is a regular item as well, which is the Enterprise Risk Update. If I could ask Emma Mosley to come forward, and if I can ask Councillors Newman there and Deputy Mayor Cashmore to move and second it. Emma, if you'd like to speak to the paper. Again, I'll take questions and comments together on this item.
Kia ora. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Mayor. This is our standard information report for the quarter for the period December through to January 2021, referred from our Audit and Risk Committee. The quarter's update includes some update commentary on our top risk reset process, our Risk Champions program, our pandemic resurgence readiness arrangements, which were touched on by Ian Maxwell as well in terms of the health and safety issues in the previous item, and an update on AC36 risk management, which of course we've all experienced some very good outcomes in the last couple of weeks. The top risks are under constant review, and we are working with the executive leadership team and senior leadership on managing the top risks. The top risks profile this quarter remains stable, with 11 top risk areas that we are continuing to assess and evaluate the controls and mitigations in place. That work will be reported back to our executive leadership team on through Audit and Risk and to yourselves in May. The key risks that are emerging that I'll highlight this quarter and that are being addressed in the context of our top risks, and it's not included in the detail in the report itself, are the health and safety and wellbeing top risk, legislative change, which I know is on the radar for many of you, as well as our organisation as a whole, including Three Waters Local Government Act and RMA reforms, which have the potential to have a significant impact on council. People and workforce risks, which are top of mind, and the fourth area is around resilience for future shocks and business continuity after the challenging previous 12 months that we've been through. So the work is on track to complete the top risk reset by May, and we'll be reporting that back through here following that work being completed. Happy to take any questions on the report itself or on top risks.
Thank you very much, Emma. So questions and comments together, if there's any. I think it's pretty straightforward. Councillor Richard Hills.
Thank you. And I
tried to wave before, but I was a little bit too late. So I just want to say thank you for the to the gym CEO for the wellbeing assessment that's happening. That's really, 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 really important, and I know will go far. On what we've got here, we've got good mention of climate change. Are we doing any risk assessment on things like ATAP and others that sit outside the council proper, I guess, and within the council family? Are we doing any of that work to sort of test the risk we could be putting ourselves into by decisions and operations of CCOs? It might be too specific, but you mentioned that we're collaborating on the climate risks, but I just want to know how broad we might be going.
Thank you. Through the Chair, a good question. Climate change is one of the top risk areas for Council, and it does have those two aspects to it. So there's the risks for the Auckland region, for New Zealand, that we're all responding to, and a lot of the work, Mahi, that's coming through your committee relating to TCFD and the setting of targets is critical to how we respond and then do our bit, if you like, in that space. So that work is linked to the top risk assessment that we do for climate change, which is under the umbrella of the top risk area of resilience. So yes, it is connected. Yes, you will see when the top risk comes through, those work streams feeding in appropriately where they relate to how we are responding and mitigating to the climate change risk. It's a bit of a puzzle, if I'm honest, but the useful thing, I think, from the organisation's perspective is when we come at this and look at it from a risk perspective, we can look at all facets and make sure that we've got a joined up picture of what we're doing and what levers we have, where we might have gaps and do more if we're needing to mitigate that particular top risk for the organisation. And it can be looked at in that context. So yes, we're working very closely with all those that are working at the coalface here, but trying to get the complete picture.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bill Cashmore.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, the independent members of the Audit and Risk Committee bring up virtually at every time these risk factors come up to it, how well are we canvassing as governors the risk profiles around council and how well is it understood? Do we have a measurement criteria for that, or is it just these sorts of updates to the governing body?
Thank you. Through the Chair, we don't have a measure as such. From a risk management perspective, I think that the risk rhythm that we have, the regularity that these issues are brought to the table, that we pause and think about them, that we have a mechanism to escalate and focus on things that might be changing or risks that might be eventuating, if you like, is very important. So the regular reporting is a critical part to that. But we do not have a measure, and we haven't measured how effective the engagement is, if that is where you're going to. We do, however, periodically run risk maturity surveys of how, which includes surveying of elected members and our governors, to test how our framework is operating and where we are on the maturity scale. We talk about being on a risk journey, and I believe we're moving along that and have moved in the last few years, and we have objectives to move further. But that is one way we do measure ourselves, and that's through the maturity survey.
Thank you very much. I was going to ask a facetious comment under AC 36 about the risk of the cup not being defended in Auckland, having talked to Stephen Tyndall this morning. There are no other comments, so I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no, carry. We